Okay, anybody remember where we left off? It's not a test. It's just like to get us back into it. Anybody want to say where we left off at the end of chapter 1? Not a trick question.
Trick
So
question.
we met.
If we were here.
Sorry, Milton, is that you?
No, that was me. It's a trick
Oh,
question
hi.
if we weren't here.
It's a trick question if
We
you weren't
weren't
here.
here.
Oh. Well said. Okay, we finished chapter 1. That's why it's not such a trick question. Actually, Ronit was here last week and she shared a thought with me about anti-Semitism. Trying to remember because I asked her to share, but she happens not to be here today. Trying to remember what she said. There was something about it that really was powerful about sending the book. So Kol Medinot HaMelech, Medina Umdina Kichtava El Am Ba'an Kilshono, Liot Kol Ish Sorer Bebeito Medaber. Something about being. Remember, we said that there was a midrash. Welcome, Judy. There's a midrash that, and I am using a lot of midrashim, that Haman was the one who was actually not in power in his own home. And his wife, who came from royalty or some noble blood, whatever that means, he had acquired his wealth. He was newly rich. What is that? New wealth? Nouveau riche, as opposed to old money. Oh, old money, new money. Thank you. Thank you for that, Elaine. And that his wife is the one who kept putting him down. And he was the one who was actually Memuchan. We spoke about that last week. There was actually a really beautiful midrash that was based on Memuchan being written with the Vav pulled ahead, not in the right way, not in the right place. And that was a way to learn that was Haman. He jumped ahead. But I'm not going to go back into what we did last week. But if we do it from the point of view that Memuchan was impetuous and he jumped ahead of the other 6, that's the Vav, 6 of the ministers, and he said this suggestion that we should put out an edict that every man should be the ruler in his home and not the woman, and that he, in his own home, his wife was the one who wanted to speak in her language. And here it says, no, everybody medaber kilshon amo should speak as that we should use the man's language. So that was all Haman, and he's imposing it on everybody else through the king, and the king in his drunken whatever is accepting Haman's suggestion, which we did say last week did not make a lot of sense. Now, what didn't make a lot of sense? To banish Vashti as queen. Now, I just want to remind people, it doesn't actually say anywhere in the Megillah that Vashti was killed. We all think that Vashti was killed. The Midrashim all say that, not all, most of them say that Vashti was killed. But you can't, and Elaine is the one I think who pointed it out, where she looked ahead. Right, Elaine? You were looking ahead. Say, wait a minute, it doesn't actually say that she was killed. It just said she was removed as queen. Now, granted, imagining that that's probably what happened, because remember, the king was, we all remember the story that if you come into the royal throne room and the king didn't invite you and doesn't ask you to come forward, that they can kill you on the spot. There are many reasons that people killed. He's ready to wipe out a whole nation, the Jewish nation. So obviously killing people was not out of his wheelhouse. And so we assume Vashti was killed so that she wouldn't be a threat or something. I don't know what. But in any case, she was certainly deposed and moved. It's great. Thank you, Elmer, just checking that it's not too cold in here. Elmer? Can you get me one more green thing? I'm too short. I always need an elevation booster seat. So we said that, one second. Oh, so that, one second. So we assume that Vashti was killed, but it doesn't make sense. Thank you so much. It doesn't actually make sense. Thank you. That Ahasuerus takes Haman's suggestion to remove Vashti as queen. It doesn't actually make sense because he loved her. He thought she was beautiful. And he wanted her power. He wanted her to put the kingdoms together. That was his justification for being king over what was known as the whole world at that time, or at least half of the world. And yet he still takes Haman's suggestion. So that's more or less where we ended off last week. Everybody with me on that? And then they sent it out to all Medinot HaMelech, to all of the all of the Medinot, the states, the provinces of the king, all 127 of them, that they should all, that the man should be the one who rules in the household. And we also added a midrash that people possibly said, but we already have that. So why is the king sending out an edict? It actually could have reduced his stature in their eyes. If somebody sends out an edict, let me just think, that you have to stop at a stop sign. If the president put out an edict or a decree or a rule, a law, you must stop at a stop sign, people will think, well, that's pretty stupid. We already stop at stop signs, or we already have to. I'm not saying everybody stops at stop signs, but they should. So if the king is putting out something that feels like everybody says, well, we already do that. We already have the man in general being the ruler of the household and speaking the language that he brought with him, they might have thought, Eze tipesh. That's what one of the midrashim say. Eze tipesh. What a foolish person this Achashverosh is. Okay, so we have met. Who have we met so far? We sort of met Haman. We don't really know that he's Haman. That's a midrash. We've met Achashverosh. We've met Vashti. And we know that there are Yehudim. We know there are Jews because the Jews actually appear already in the first chapter. And we've spent also a lot of time talking about perhaps there was overt or covert anti-Semitism here that has popped its head up. Ellen, did you want to add something? No, you're good. Okay. Yes, Judy, you are muted. You must unmute. No, you must unmute.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay, good, good. I wanted to ask, when you said Kilshon Amo, did I misunderstand, or didn't you say that was the language of the husband?
Yes,
But does
exactly.
Kilshon Amo mean the language of his people?
Well,
Of
yeah, but that's
or of one's people? Doesn't have to be his, meaning the husband's. Could
no,
be
it does. No, it does. I'll tell you why. Because it says liot kol ish, that every man should be sorer beveto, should be ruler or have the dominate in his household, umidaber in male form, kilishon amo, according to the language of his people. So
I
if you
get
look
it.
at the pasuk,
Right.
it says kol ish.
Okay, wait, what pasuk are we on? I came late, sorry.
Last pasuk of the first chapter, but we're now starting the second chapter, so don't even bother going back to it. We were just summarizing where we got to last week. Get people, somebody mentioned, well, if they weren't here last week, they don't actually know where we are. So we did a quick summary of a few of the things that we said. And now comes Perek Bet, the second chapter. Now we are going to meet, hello, Robert Moshe. Hello, Alice, welcome. We're going to meet some more of our main characters. Everybody has chapter 2, verse 1. Achar hadvarim ha'ele. After these events or these things transpired, kishoch chamat hamelech Achashverosh, when the fury of King Achashverosh subsided, zacharet Vashti, he remembered Vashti, be'et asher asata, and everything that she did, meaning I would assume that means all the bad things she did, that she refused to appear in front of him, be'et asher nigzar alea, and what was decreed upon her, even though all we know is that she was deposed. By the way, I think you may recall that I said last week that I do have a flash of pride in Vashti for whatever reason, at least on the surface, that she was willing to stand up to the king. I mean, obviously, if she's deposed and or killed, that's not a great way to resolve it. But the fact that she wasn't just willing to do the bidding of a drunken king and show off, and was willing, with the little agency that she had, she was willing to stand up to him. Not that it necessarily got her anywhere. Now, that's not through the lens of Hashem orchestrating everything so that Esther can come to power. That's through a different lens. And I think that the whole way through, we're going to, 1 minute, 1 second. We're going to see it from, just 1 second, Elaine. We're going to see it from different lenses. So that's another lens that I cannot skip saying that. Yes, Elaine.
No, I just am aware it's a very modern lens. I'm not sure other generations thought that way.
Yeah, I can't imagine the classic commentary said, well, go Vashti for standing up to Achashverosh. Maybe. It's possible. I haven't met that commentary. I agree. That's more modern, but I'm a modern woman. So, so that is, I'm just saying I have that little that little spurt of pride and in Vashti, or at least recognition about not, for whatever reason, whether she grew a tail or didn't grow a tail, maybe because whether she didn't want to parade naked, whether, you know, for whatever reason that she didn't want to just give in to her husband's command. Now, she had very little agency, even though she's the one who brought the money and the power. But we know that traditionally women often don't. And yet, this Megillah tells us about women who have very little agency at first glance. So that's another way of reading the Megillah. You know that's going to pop up, right? There's no way I could go through this Megillah and not mention it. So the another lens, there's the comedic, is that how you pronounce it? Phyllis, is that how you pronounce it? Comedic?
Yes,
Elaine, yeah?
yes.
There's the lens of comedy, which I've actually read. I think Lance, you sent me an article and I found it great. An article that says that it's a comedy, it's farcical even, because everybody is so overblown and exaggerated in their roles. And that is one lens. There's a lens of Hashem orchestrating everything in the background. There's a lens of feminism in many ways, and there's a lens of anti-Semitism. I think they all coexist. And we have the opportunity to learn many of them, and I'm really appreciating everybody who brings their lens to it as well. Okay, so he remembers everything. Just a minute. So this is interesting, and I would love to hear your thoughts. Rashi says, Zachar, what did he remember? What did he remember? I'm sorry, you want me to, I'm happy to look at text, but I can't always read them when I'm teaching. But let me read. Why were students in day school? Who was that? Who asked that question?
That's me.
Oh, Karen. So Karen,
What
I don't
was
know.
taught for-
I'm not sure if you were here on previous classes.
Oh.
You?
No.
So he actually went into that in previous
Okay.
classes.
All right.
Well,
I'll get
then
it from Helen.
You'll get found. So how, first of all, our classes are online. They're recorded. You can
Oh,
just,
that's right. Right.
Yeah, you can-
Helen shares that.
and if it still doesn't, answer your, you can just
No
go on our
problem.
website. You don't even need to be, you don't have special access. It's on our website under one of the drop
Yeah,
downs.
Helen sends it out to us.
Great,
Thank you.
great. So you could watch them if it really interesting. And I appreciate that you're bringing that. The way we taught it also is that the Midrash picks up on the text and then, right, okay, great. And please, this is not to put you off that you shouldn't ask questions and you shouldn't
No,
bring it.
that's fine.
No.
That's fine.
Please continue to do that as we go along. Okay. So Rashi says, what did he remember? Not that he remembered her actions of disobeying him, but rather her beauty. Now, why would Rashi say that? Why would Rashi say that he remembered her beauty? Any thoughts? And you know the Megillah, right? This is a story we all know. I mean, I think we all know it. So why would Rashi say that? From the text. What happens a little bit later? Yeah, Ellen.
Well, they have to set the stage for the reason why he would choose Esther.
Okay. What happened
would
before?
Be
Ellen,
accepted.
what happened before he chooses Esther? What does he do?
They have a beauty pageant.
Exactly. I remember the first time somebody called it a beauty pageant, I'm like, oh, by the way, I used to watch the beauty pageants as a girl. I remember June Lockhart. I thought it was amazing. We always rooted for Miss Israel. We thought they were, the evening gowns and the swimsuit. I know we don't do that anymore. And I get that. So sorry, that's not the feminist lens, but that's the little girl lens who was enchanted and enamored by, the sparkle and the dazzle. But when the first person called it a beauty pageant, I loved it. I mean, that made so much sense. It was never presented that way. But that's why I keep wanting to show you why our commentaries came up with what they came up with. Because if you look at the text, it says he remembered Vashti, what she did, and what was decreed on her. So that doesn't sound like he's remembering her beauty. But Rashi is saying, well, he doesn't say this, but he's looking ahead. And he knows that there's going to be what Ellen called a beauty pageant. So it makes sense to say when he remembered Vashti, he remembered her beauty and he missed it. And he's like, what did I do? I had the most beautiful woman or one of the most beautiful women in the world, according to some, the most beautiful women. So I just want to show you that there's logic that. So what did he remember? He remembered Vashti. He remembered her beauty. Then he remembered what she did. Then he remembered what was decreed. Now, here's another question for you. Why does the Megillah say Nigzar aleha in the passive what was decreed on her, and not et asher gazar aleha, what he decreed on her. Why would the Megillah choose to use the passive tense? Any thoughts? I have an answer to that. Helen, 1 second, everybody understand the question. It says nigzar, what was decreed, as if Achashverosh had nothing to do with it, or maybe, yeah, go on, Helen.
Because it was his advisor, presumably Haman, who said, oh, get rid of her. It wasn't, yes, he had asked for advice, but that would be one. Another one, which I just
Well,
thought
one
of-
second, just wait 1 second. Hold the second one. I want you to hold it. I just want to continue your thought. I wonder if that means that Achashverosh is sort of, not my fault, I didn't do it, brushing off the responsibility. I wonder if that's how he
That's
felt.
why- that was-
Because of using nigzar instead of gazar, the passive form. Yes, Helen, go on.
So that's the first one. Then if you go look at it from the perspective of Hashem being hidden, then
Nice,
say that it was decreed by Hashem.
nice, very nice. Right, we said we're going to try to look and see all the places. I don't know, I haven't kept a running tally of this, but it is interesting. Yes, Ellen, you wanted, Helen to Ellen. Yes, Ellen.
It's as if he doesn't have a choice. And if you go back to what you said before, it would, if they passed a decree like that at the end of chapter 1, which would make him look weak, not doing anything would also make him look weak. And so he truly doesn't have a choice about what he does.
Oh, no. Oh, that's that's even deeper. Wow. So you're saying nigzar, that things are set into motion, whether he did it, Hashem planted it, it's Memuchan's / Haman's fault. No matter what, the nigzar means that he's being carried along by events.
He has to do it.
Give me goosebumps. Yes, that is
What
beautiful.
if he allowed it to stand?
Right.
Then
Without
anybody could
pointing.
challenge him.
Then anybody what? I'm sorry, say it again.
Then anyone could challenge him and
Right.
say they want to do what he wants them to do.
So wait, oh, you're saying the nigzar that it had to be. In other words, he had to kill her or depose her. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, he
Got it.
doesn't have
We
a
got it.
choice.
Yep. So nigzar means, yes, whether he had to actually do that instead of finding some other way to strip her of her, rather than depose or kill her. I still am so reluctant to say kill her, only because it doesn't say that anywhere in the Megillah. That's the only reason that I feel so reluctant to actually say kill her, even though that's the first go-to. Very excellent, 3 excellent answers. Anybody else have a thought? Go on.
Question.
Yes, Judy.
Yeah, question. The word gazar doesn't mean cut off also, in addition to decreed? Because-
Gazar, yes, ligzor means to cut. Yep.
So,
Well, that's because you cut a decree, like it's sharp. That's the connection.
okay, but it could mean like they decapitated her. It could not mean that.
That's kind of cool. Except the gezerah is a decree, but why not?
Okay.
Gzar, wow, decapitated. Okay, that's a good midrash. I love that. You just wrote a midrash right in this very moment, Judy. You wrote a midrash. Beautiful. Because midrash, right, adds something that's hidden within the text. Well done. Okay, 4 amazing answers. Thank you. I don't have anything to add to that. We are going to move on. Next pasuk, pasuk bet. Vayomru na'arei hamelech misharetav. So who are na'arei hamelech? A na'ar is a youth. And misharetav means a servant, a server, somebody who serves. Lisharet means to serve somebody. Na'arei hamelech misharetav. Right, they see something's going on with the king. He remembers what's going on with the king. What are they saying? And they say to the king, "Yivakshu lamelech na'arot betulot tovot mareh." They make a suggestion. Let there be, well, the English says, "Let there be sought for the king young maidens, handsome in appearance." I'm just like confused. Didn't in the previous parak, didn't it say that he called, one second. He asked for the Chachamim Yodei Ha'itim. He asked for his wise people, the ones who know, we said maybe the Jews, and those who are near to him, HaKarov Elav, the 7 Sarei Parasu Madai, the 7 ministers of Parasu Madai, of Persia and Media, whatever it's called in English. What are Arei HaMelech, his servants, doing here? And why are they coming up with a suggestion? Any thoughts about that? I never noticed that, by the way, until I started learning it. I never thought of it. What happened to the ministers? Since when do Na'arei HaMelech servants come up with a suggestion? Any thoughts?
Well, it makes me think of the scene with Solomon after Solomon dies, when the older advisors urge caution, and the young ones say, "No, go at it," right? Give them a hard time, and of course that's sort of disastrous for Rehoboam.
Nice.
But here you've got the old ministers maybe aren't so thrilled, and the young guys say, "Get another woman."
I like that. That makes a lot of sense. One second, I'm helping somebody get in 1 minute. Oh, maybe Richard can help him. Somebody wanted to get on the Zoom and wasn't able to. Apologies. Just want to see if we can help. I'm going to go over what you said in a second, Ted, because that's great. So what Ted is saying is, and this, I like the fact that you took it from our biblical text. I mean, we can take it from, Shakespeare or something like that, but it's actually really nice when we can compare it to another text. When after Shlomo Melech, it's really nice. Thank you for reminding me of that, when he died, and there were 2 schools of thought. There was the old guard and the new guard, so to speak. And the old guard, who you would think would have more weight, they said, exercise caution. Ted, that was about having an heir to the throne?
No, it was about taxes and
Oh, the
other
taxes. Got
levies,
it.
right?
Yeah. Thank you. I didn't think it was about the heir to the throne. Okay. And then the younger ones were more impetuous and jumped forward, and they said, don't use caution. So maybe what happened is that the 7 ministers, who probably were older, they certainly carried more weight as a rule. They either didn't have what to say, didn't have an idea, or whatever they suggested, maybe the king discounted. And the Na'arei HaMelech Misharatav, where some of the commentaries say they saw him being depressed, that they came up with an idea. I still think it's odd that his servants are coming up with it, the Misharatim, but maybe they were page boys, and maybe they came, I don't know very much about the way it works in royal courts, but I know there's something called page boys who are young, and they do come from noble backgrounds, so that's possible. There is one direction that the Gra, wait 1 second, not the Gemara, not the Gra, who said that? Who is it who said that? Oh, this, I don't know. This is the Manot HaLevi. So again, this is a different midrash. He said that after having Vashti killed, he was drunk. And when he sobered up, he began to ask for her. He remembered her, and he's like, bring Vashti. Then he learned she had been put to death. In this case, you would have to say she was put to death, because if he just deposed her, he could just bring her back. By the way, that could be a reason why they say she was killed. Because although, going to what Elaine, was it Elaine who said, or Ellen, that he would look weak if he brought her back, but he could say, oh, I'm just banishing her for a year, and then I'll bring her back. But if you say that she was killed, 1 second, Phyllis, I'll get to you 1 second, that he put to death those who recommended killing Vashti. And that could be another way to read it. And from then on, the simple servants came up with like the simplest idea. Oh, just bring a queen on who's beautiful. Doesn't matter her lineage. It doesn't matter her background. The only thing is, this is completely in contention with Memuchan, one of the 7 advisors, being Haman. Because if he killed Haman, obviously Haman wouldn't appear in the rest of the story. So we can see that the Midrashim can be in contention with each other. One second, Phyllis, and then we can go back to that thought. Yes. Yeah, and then
It's a way for the pages or the servants to elevate themselves, that they've come up with an idea that they think, will really help, Ahasuerus get over, his feeling badly about whatever he did.
yeah, then he'll always go to them. And actually, they do appear a lot, the sages, the pages, sorry, not the sages, the pages. Nice. 1 second, Ellen, and then Alice. Yeah.
This might be where you start to see the hand of Hashem, because
Hmm.
the man didn't have one wife, he had a whole bunch of wives. Yeah,
Right.
he could have just taken one of his other wives and
Yeah.
elevated her to be
Especially, correct, especially if it wasn't about lineage, right?
right. So the thing is that Hashem has to use some ploy to get him to start doing this beauty pageant or gathering maidens from outside the harem.
Right.
And so you have servants. It's like servants of the Lord, servants of God.
Nice. Beautiful.
He doesn't have that again. He needs to have a reason to go outside of the palace,
Right.
outside of the harem.
Mhm. Yep. Alice.
Yeah, I was interested in the idea of by deposing or killing Vashti, he's really alienating a number of people
Correct.
who had power. And I find it interesting that the young men are recommending, the only criteria is beauty and young, and it doesn't, he's not protecting his kingdom.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah. That so this leads us actually to thinking he's foolish. And going back to the comic aspect,
Right.
this even more, more strongly shows that he's simple and foolish, because how could it be that he would just go according to beauty? We all know that, if you want beauty, go to your harem. You got thousands of women there probably. So that is literally the only criteria here. And why would a king only use that criteria? Unless, I don't know. I have no answer for that, because it's a lot. We know that there are marriages of power. That's the way royal families work, as far as I know. The
Hi,
book stories and movies and TV shows that I've seen in my life.
this is Bert. Got to think like, a man. Okay. Men, many men are just concerned about how beautiful their wife is. And an idea of having, a beauty contest is great. I have had these old women here for years now. Now I want a brand new young wife,
Yeah.
a trophy wife.
Yes. I want to say that, no, I'm not going to say it.
No,
Okay.
I'm just saying is that
That's
many
something a
men
man
are like
shared with
that.
me once. Yes. So I'm not
Many
going
men
to.
are like that, hey, and just as an
Present
aside,
company discounted completely.
many, as I say, in the Chumash, it says, it always talks about, about even the you fast Torah, you fast Mara. Beauty is actually, not frowned upon. Is held out as an important value, particularly in those times when women weren't particularly well educated.
I just want to say, I know this is serious, but being that you brought this up, I actually want to read something from Israel, taking a step away from the Megillah for a moment, because Israel is, of course, always on my mind. About beauty, I want to read something written by a Chayal who was killed, and his fiance sent this to Sivan Rahav Meir, one of my favorite commentators, a modern Israeli politician who's Orthodox religious. Shalom Sivan, my name is Hallel, the fiance of Netanel Eitan, Hashem Yikom Damo, who fell in Gaza on Hanukkah. This is an excerpt from his diary. I want to read it because of what you said, Bert. Jerusalem is surrounded by mountains. Jerusalem is a symbol of life. She is so beautiful and with such unique beauty. She does not have the tallest mountain in the world. She does not have an impressive mountain glacier either. Remember, we know Harei Yehuda Yerushalayim, the mountains of Judah and Jerusalem. Her mountains, in fact, are average. Despite all this, she is the most beautiful city in the world. True beauty comes from within and radiates outwards. To see the beauty in someone else, you have to look inside. A husband who sees the beauty in his wife will always see it, no matter how many years have passed. This is the story of Yerushalayim. What's inside makes her the most beautiful city. And if I succeed in applying this principle, and I succeed in finding my Jerusalem in a woman, I will find the most beautiful woman in the world. May he be remembered, really. His memory be a blessing. Thank you for reminding me of that, Bert. I find that very powerful and beautiful. Okay. It's nice to be able to bring in something in his memory. So many have been killed and it's hard to remember all of them. Okay, so we have talked about all different ideas. Did everybody get a chance to speak? I want to make sure that I didn't skip anyone. Everybody had a chance to say something? Okay, I have a lot of great ideas here that I wrote in notes and I'll incorporate into my notes. Thank you so much. I have the honor of being a scholar in residence in Sharon, Massachusetts. And one of the things that I'll be teaching is a shiur based on this class. And I'm just excited to look at all my different notes and decide what it is I'm going to share in 45 minutes that we've already gone over in so many classes to see how we should learn it. And a lot of it are the things that you proposed here. Okay, moving on to, okay, Gimel, 3. So not only did they suggest, so they suggest to do, based on beauty, is to make a beauty pageant. V'yafkeda melech pikidim, the king shall appoint officers, b'chon medinot malchuto, in all of his provinces of his kingdom, v'yikbitzu. So you could say yikbitzu, they will gather together, they'll take them. But actually, one way of learning it is that they had to force it. Why would the girls not particularly want to come and be the king's queen, or rather be part of this beauty pageant? Milton, you're muted. Yeah, okay.
They lose their virginity. And
They
can't
lose
get
their,
married.
yep. They lose their virginity, and it turns out, at least then, the Gemara says, and this is upheld later, actually we'll look at it, we'll see it inside, that if she was picked, she would be queen, but if not, and there could be thousands, they would just be, she would be sent to the king's harem to be chained for life, because it would not be seemly for anyone to sleep with a girl who slept with the king. So none of the girls wanted to do this, and none of the fathers wanted it, and that's why you had to have pikidim, you had to have officers in all the provinces to forcibly gather together young maidens. Now, if they took all the young maidens, I'm not sure who was left to marry, but I guess they had to wait for younger ones to grow up.
The not so attractive ones.
I was going to say, I was going to say the ugly one. That's a much nicer way to say it. The not so attractive one. That at that time, it was good not to be so attractive, actually. They will take kol na'ara betula, every virgin, tovat mareh, good looking, el Shushan Habira. Remember, we said Shushan Habira is the capital Shushan, as opposed to Ha'ir Shushan, which is that little Shushan suburb, which I still really like that read. So obviously, if they're collecting them from all over the kingdom, they're bringing them to the capital city of Shushan, El Beit Hanashim, to the house of women. El Yad Hege Siris Hamelech. Hege was the guy who was in charge of it, a Siris. It says here the keeper of the women, but actually Saris Misuras means somebody who was castrated, which makes sense because you would want a man who is involved with all these women probably to be castrated, so he has no desire to sleep with these women. As sad as that is. Shomer Anashim, he's a keeper of the women, V'naton Tamrukim, and he gives them, Tamrukim are cosmetics. They're the makeup, the cosmetics, or anything else that they use. And let me just see if I have something on Gimel. Nope. Gimel 3. Nope, I'm good. Okay, unless somebody has something to say, you can always raise your hand. And the 4th, so this is still continuing what Na'arei HaMelech, what the king's servants or his pages. V'na'ara asher titav b'nei HaMelech, the one who will find the most favor with the king, Timloch tachat Vashti. she will reign instead of Vashti. Vayitav hadavar b'nei hamelech vayasken. He really liked that idea, and that is what he did. Okay. Yes.
Question. Any chance that Tachat could mean underneath and that she would be like the vice queen? Or that's totally not right? It's a wrong
Well, it
read.
doesn't, I mean, it doesn't really make sense because instead of, it should be instead of, because she doesn't appear anymore and there's only one queen. It never says. That's all. I don't know how you, I mean, I understand the word tachat could be underneath her. But maybe you could say something else underneath Vashti, meaning she doesn't have the level of power or
Right.
she doesn't have the riches maybe that Vashti came with. Maybe you could say that. I don't think it could be because there's no Vashti anymore. Vashti disappears. For the Megillah, one of the sentiments, but they didn't skip it. Oh, right. Megillat Sitarim. Remember we spoke about. I don't know if it's so important, but the idea here is that he had to send out to 127 provinces. Why? Because she was really, really beautiful, and they should have found her quickly, except that Mordechai hid her. Wait a second. Hid her. Did we read this somewhere that Mordechai wasn't allowed to hide her? Oh, yes. So I don't remember if I said this last time, but if the king sends out an edict that the man should be the head of the household, and they have to follow, I'm just trying to remember, how did that connect up with, I don't know, maybe it'll come up again. I'm sorry. I know I had a thought about that, but I'm not sure how it fits in, so I don't want to say it right this second. Okay, now we're coming to one of the more famous psukim. Why? Because we say it out loud, so you may know it. Ish Yehudi haya b'Shushan habira. So it's so interesting that this Ish Yehudi, this Jewish person, according to one of our commentaries, you could not live in Shushan habira if you were a Jew. But Ish Yehudi, a Jewish person, was in Shushan, the capital. Ushmo, and his name, Mordechai ben Yair ben Shimi ben Kish Ish Yemini. So it gives his whole lineage, and it says Ish Yemini, which we understand means from the tribe of Binyamin. Okay, so hold on one second. So it's interesting. One of the questions is, was he an Ish Yehudi? Now, I know in modern day language, we all say Yehudim are Jews. But Yehudi really here, what does it really mean?
Judah, tribe of Judah.
From the tribe of Judah. So was he from the tribe of Judah? Yes. Well, good reading, Elaine. Ish Yehudi, was he a person from the tribe of Judah, or was he from the tribe of Benjamin?
Benjamin.
Yeah. Was he from one or from the other? Rashi said that he's from Binyamin, from the tribe of, and by the way, there's a lot of teachings about him being from Binyamin, and how Binyamin, who was at one point ostracized by the other tribes, and this pulled together. He's called Yehudi, Rashi says, just like we are, because most of the Jews from the second exile were from Shevet Yehuda, but I believe Binyamin was attached to Yehuda in its geographical location in Israel. And so they were exiled with, but because it was almost all Shevet Yehuda, he's just called Yehudi because that's what everybody called them, because everybody was called Yehudim from Shevet Yehuda. So this would be the time that from this exile is actually from the second exile. So that's confusing. Maybe it's just, Didn't Mordechai and Esther live in between the first and second exile? Now I'm confused. Didn't we say that they were in between and they came back to build the Beit HaMikdash? So I don't know why Rashi would say that. I don't know. I don't have a thought about that, except that that's how the Jews were called. So maybe it was the first exile. That's just very confusing for me.
Well, there was a time when people didn't refer to Jews. There was no such thing as a Jew. You were a Judahite. You were from the land of Judah.
But then why does it say Yishmini? That's just to put him, like, to say.
Because he was, because for us, we know in the land of Judah, there were people from different tribes. But outside or to other people, the Jews were known as Judeans.
Right, Judea. Okay, yeah. So I think I don't know what Rashi was saying. Maybe I might have copied that correctly. I don't have Rashi with me right this second, but thank you for saying that. So the general description or the general way that Jews were referred to is Yehudim, and he's saying that, okay, but from Ishmini. So here's a question. There is an opinion in the Gemara that this should have been the first pasuk because Mordechai was so special. So I have a question. What do you see from this pasuk that the Gemara thinks that it should start? Oh, they put on the heat. Yay. That the Gemara should start from this pasuk. What are you seeing here? Felice, did you want to say something? You have to unmute. Felice, you have to unmute. Felice, you have to unmute. All right, when you unmute, we'll listen, okay? When you unmute. Any thoughts from the text of the pasuk? Yes, Judy.
It's kind of zeroing in on the whole Jewish nature of our story. It's, all until kings, provinces, queens, whatever. But now we're
Nice.
we're focusing on the Jewish part.
Well, yes, and it also said Yehudim, right? Doesn't it say, or Kol Hanimtzim? Did we say Jews at all in the first parak? I thought we did, but maybe we didn't.
I don't remember.
We may not have actually said the word Yehudim. 1 second. Oh, no, Kol Ha'am. Kol Ha'am, all the nation. And then the Midrash says it must be the nation of Jews. And Nimtzim b'Shushan HaBirah. Okay, so we haven't said Yehudim. Very nice, beautiful. So I love that. That means that this is bringing it out into the open. This would be the focus. And good. So that's one reading that should be. What do we see special about Mordechai? Remember, Mordechai is living in Shushan, or in this land of exile. Any thoughts? So I know, Felice, you can speak as soon as you unmute. No, you're speaking, but you're not unmuted. So I'm sorry. Look, it looks red. You need to change the red microphone to green, or take off the red. I'm sorry. I don't know what you're on, so I can't help you. I apologize. You need to find a way to do it. One opinion, and this is something I think that can speak to us people, perhaps living outside of Israel, and that's part of what the Megillah is about, that during this period in history, this is Ya'arot Dvash, this is from a Midrash, that many Jews unfortunately succumbed to the power and glitter of Ahasuerus's kingdom, perhaps at the expense of their Torah observance. And we know that that's assimilation, that's literally what's happening in America. It's not pointing a finger, it's not blame, that's not the point. It is describing what is happening. And it's easy, or it can be easy, to reduce Torah observance and kind of succumb or be pulled to assimilation for many reasons. And that is what this Midrash says. Even the ones who were faithful to Hashem in their hearts, this is a second level, might not have demonstrated it openly outside. We know that was a problem in many. We have that problem today. So here's where I felt anti-Semitism crept in the background here. That he was one of the few, if not the only one, but he was one of the few who actually was willing to be seen as an Ish Yehudi. Somebody told me, somebody from our shul, she said that she was taking a bus, somebody on a Zoom, I can't remember, and her 6-year-old child was with her. And she had a Magen David necklace, and he said, Ima or Mommy, whatever he called her, can you put the necklace inside? Now, this is happening right now in America. And she did, because she didn't want to upset her child and make him feel unsafe. But it felt so sad that she couldn't do it. And she couldn't believe that she was, that we had reached that point where even her 6-year-old son felt that way. The Megillah is indicating that Mordechai was a devout Jew, not only in the confines of his home, but even in the middle of Shushan, the capital. Ish Yehudi haya b'Shushan HaBirah. Why was it so important to say that he was in Shushan HaBirah? because he looked Jewish even in the capital, even in the heart, even in the seat where the government was, and even where other people may not have been willing to show their Judaism. And I found this a very compelling read to understand it that way. If anybody has other thoughts, but whether in government circles or on the street, he proudly demonstrated his Torah convictions. Yes.
Question, the word Yamin, yes, we described it, we translated it as being a Benjaminite, but can it also mean that he was faithful,
Yeah.
full of Unah?
100%. Yamin is right. Was
But the other way of in Israel right now, aren't the right or the ones on the right called Yaminim? The one on the right.
okay,
but
well, that's different. I'll tell you why that's different. That's like political right and left. I feel like that's hard to really pull that.
Right.
I'm sorry, but that feels hard. I would say it's more about Yamin following the right path, the correct
Right.
path, because the derech, I feel like that maybe could represent it. I think, I don't think that, and that feels very political. In Israel, by the way, Yamin and right and left is about, I guess, pluralistic Judaism on one hand, but in Israel, it's much, much, much more about those who believe that all parts of the land, including those what's called over the green line, belong to Jewish people, and it should never be given up, that it's a God give. It's more, that's more what it's about. A little bit now you hear about left in things about practice of Judaism, but it's less so, I would say. Just 1 minute. I know I had another thing. It's only
I have a question.
Yep.
Why is, did any of the Meforshim talk about why his name wasn't put first? Mordechai ben Yair Ish Yehudi.
Yes, that, I think, who asked that question? Where was it? Ruben?
Alice.
Oh, Alice. Yes, I think it goes to, well, it could go to what Judy said, that we're now focusing on Yehudim, and that's the ikar of the main focus of the Megillah. It's not just about some random king. So that could be like, we're finally, again, that goes back to the Gemara saying this should have been the first pasuk, or it could have been the first pasuk. Really, it's about Ish Yehudi. Hiya, 1 second, Bert. And then, or do you want to answer the question and then I'll answer? No. So the other thing is that the first thing you knew when you saw him was that he was a Jewish person. So it's highlighting the fact that we're so proud of the fact that this is a person who never, on one hand, did not succumb to assimilation, and on the other hand, did not hide his Jewishness, Alice. So I think it's highlighting both of those issues. Thank you for the question. Yes, Bert.
Yeah, it's interesting though that he has a name that's not Jewish.
Mordechai?
Marduk.
Marduk. Well, that's an
That's where their name probably
interesting-
came from. I've seen suggestions about that.
It's interesting, and this is nothing about you, but like your name is Bert, but I consider you a totally religious Jew.
Yes, but that's we refer to him, as that was his only name that we're aware of. Nobody says to him as multiple names, like Yisro has multiple names, and this is his name. And so maybe he came from an assimilated family. He may be not be, but I'm just simply saying that I've always understood that Marduk was the origin, the non-Jewish Marduk was the origin of the name Mordechai.
That makes sense. What does Esther come from? Also.
Huh? Say that
Esther
again?
Also, Esther Ishtar.
Ishtar.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, so they all are. So I don't have an answer for that. I mean, what's the question here? You're just noting.
I guess you're saying about emphasizing that he was a Yehudi and that he was, his Jewishness. Yet, he can, he and Esther have non-Jewish names.
That does not negate the fact that he looked like
That he what?
That he looked like a Jew and presented as a Jew. It does not negate that. I think.
Well, as I say, if he presents himself as a Jew, then he would have a Jewish name.
But that's what I'm saying, Bert.
No.
Yourself, look at the names of the people on this Zoom. How many people? Everybody here presents, so far as I can tell, is Jewish. I'm not saying. I'm not what's the word? Casting judgment here, but I'm saying it sounds like he Ishudi. You looked at him. In fact, this goes to Alice's question. One of the Mefarshim, the Kaf Kuf Admor, do not know who that is. Kaf Kuf, I'm not sure who that is. He says, I'm sure it's very well known. He says the reason there's no name at the beginning, which is Alice's question, why didn't it start with Mordechai, Haya b'Shushan habira, or Ish Haya b'Shushan habira, Shmo Mordechai b'Dara, Ish Yehudi. Why? Because without knowing his name, you knew that he was Jewish. So that would be a reason. So, I mean, I have no answer for you why he had his name came, but I'm just looking around, and believe me, this is not judgment. I have an English name too, by the way, but I only use it for legal documents. And today, people are more used to having weird names. So people in America, in fact, it's really funny. Every time I say something to Alexa in the morning, she says, "Good morning, Bracha." Every morning she says, "Good morning, Bracha." She doesn't know how to say Bracha, but I use name. But I have a legal name because people can't pronounce Bracha. That's the reason. My second name is Leah, just so you know. So my English name is Laura. But I'm looking around. How many people on this Zoom, all observant, wonderful Jews who look Jewish? I'm just saying, this is when you live in a country. I guess it becomes. I'm actually the only person here. Again, not a judgment thing, where my Hebrew name is being used. But you all have Hebrew names. So I'm just putting it out there that I don't think
my parents didn't call me Bert. My parents called me Baruch.
but but why don't you use Baruch?
Well, that goes back to
But it's not just
there's a
you.
historic thing.
No, I agree.
There's a reason
but
for that.
Bert, but I'm just saying, look around, just take a poll of the people on the Zoom. It doesn't seem to detract from our Jewishness that we use your question is not incorrect. I'm just saying this must be what happens when you live. Look, all the Israelis don't use American names. They live in Israel. They could be completely secular and they're still called Ilan and whatever, many other names that are Israeli names. They don't usually call themselves Bert, right? They don't call themselves Ted. They don't call themselves Ruby. I mean, hell, they just don't use those names because that's the culture in Israel to use. I just hope people aren't taking this as judgment. I just think that it seems like names are not indicative. And here the idea being, you looked at him, you knew he was Jewish. Yes, Lance.
In the chat, I have put a link. If you click it, you'll get to an article by Rabbi Zev Farber. You know who he is?
Yeah, I do.
And the article is a very scholarly discussion of the Megillah of Esther in the Talmud, focusing on Vashti. And the thesis that I put in the chat is one that I think is interesting.
Thank you. You'll have to send me by email because I don't have the chat, but thank you so much. I just want to say that given all these questions about a name, let me just read to you his answer. Since Mordechai's real name was Mordechai and Yehudi was only a title he earned for not accepting idolatry, according to the Gemara, should the text have first stated his name and then his title? Unfortunately, this is the answer. Sometimes due to outward appearances, the only way to know that one is a Jew is by that person's Jewish name. You hear Goldberg, you hear Cohen, you know that person is a Jew. If not by the name necessarily. The Megillah is telling us is without even knowing his name, one would see Mordechai walking in the streets of the capital, would immediately know. Now they said by his beard and his payas, honestly, I don't know that that's how they knew. Sorry, I'm not sure that it's his payas and his beard, but that's separate. And his attire, that's whoever wrote this, assumed that maybe they assumed he wore kapatza, I don't know. An attire that each Yehudi here walks a Jewish man. Felice, you're unmuted. Would you like to say something?
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah, very quickly. Ish Yehudi, I was thinking that maybe he was somebody who didn't want to deny he was Jewish. He wanted to be known he was a Jewish person. That's why I didn't say right away Mordechai, because it just said a name. But
Exactly.
it said Ish Yehudi, that he wanted to be known as a Jewish person.
Yep.
He didn't hide the fact. And the
Right.
other thing is and just very quickly, after these things, well, I was thinking way before, but I wasn't muted. Anyway, unmuted rather. Anyway, I was thinking that maybe at the time, from the beginning of the Megillah, that he had this party and he became intoxicated. Now, later on, when he really wasn't drinking, he realized, why did he do this? He really shouldn't have, removed Vashti, not killed her, removed her. So I'm saying,
Yeah,
maybe
when
after
his,
when he
the
was
drunken,
sober.
right, when he's sober. Nice. Yeah, beautiful.
Okay,
By the way, thank you. I just
You're
want to
welcome.
say to you, Bert, that according to the Gemara, you can look it up in Menachot 65a, Mordechai had a Hebrew name. And his
Oh,
Hebrew name was Petachia. There is a midrash that says, okay, you can learn it from a pasuk, but and whatever, that's what they said, Petachia. So they figure it out through gematria between Mordechai and Petachia. I'm just saying, they said he had a Hebrew name and an English name, so to speak, which was really a Persian name. I just want to say if there's one more thing. Do Ben Yair, Ben Shim'i, Ben Kish, Ishimini. So it could be just the lineage, but there's a midrash that says that each word here means something and says something. Ben Yair, Laha'ir means to illuminate from the word or. A person and a Ben, a son who illuminated the eyes of Israel with his prayers. Ben Shim'i, that's from Lishma, to hear. A son, Ben, to whose prayers Hashem listened, and Ben Kish, Lahakish Badelet means to knock on the door.
Oh, interesting.
Son who knocked on the doors for mercy and they were open for him. And I think that is such a beautiful way to understand his lineage, Ben Yair, but I'd never heard that before, that it's not just his regular lineage, but that each now, I mean, if it was his lineage, then, then it just happens to be that these names, but it's a midrashic way of understanding a lot of depth to Mordechai, and that he was really true to Hashem, which is why Hashem listened to his prayers. And
Also, Bracha, do you hear me now? Bracha.
Yep.
Yeah, when it says Ishimi, I was thinking of the first king of Israel, Shaul, was from Shevet Binyamin. So maybe people knew that the kings originally came from Shevet Binyamin. Could have been known.
Yeah, nice, good.
Also,
Yeah.
Rabbi Bracha.
Yes, thank you, Judy. Yes.
Okay. So also, within the word Mordechai, you have Mered and Kai. Mered means to rebel. So he was an individual who was
nice. Judy's not going to let us get away without looking at the root of the words. I love that. That's beautiful.
What is the Kai? Please explain the Kai. The
We're
Kuf.
going to do that next time because our time's up, but I love that. I'm going to write that down. I'm writing, you have to remember the question also, but Mered and Ki, I don't know, Ki or it's not Chai with a Chet.
Okay, Ki. Well, the whole thing, the whole story is because.
Well, yeah, exactly. The whole story
Yes.
is because nice, Mered
Right.
Ki, because Hashem, because anti-Semitism, because Esther, because this happened. There you go. Beautiful, beautiful. Love
because
it.
is illuminating and listening and knocking on the door because of that, all of that.
Yep. Nice, beautiful, everybody. Thank you so much. I cannot tell you how uplifted I feel learning these texts with you, because you add so much richness to my study. And I want to thank everybody for bringing your full selves and really thoughtfulness, questions, and the answers, and what you've suggested, and sending love to all. And I hope to be here next week. That's the plan.
You.
Thank
Everybody for joining.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.